No, actually, no. I think I was kicked out of one school. I can't remember what specifically. Then I was dropped a year, which meant I was in the same year as my brother. And, of course, the two of us together were a nightmare. And in the end, they said one of us has got to go. So he went, and then the following year, they kicked me out. And then I went to boarding school, and I got caught in a pub, and I was...
I love this. When you went to boarding school... A few days after you got there, you sent the following letter to your parents. And I'm going to read it in full because it is hysterical. Dear Mum and Dad, I hope you're happy to have finally got rid of me. I also hope you're happy in your centrally heated warm house and you have a lot to eat, because I'm lying in a dormitory which has icicles on the inside and there is nothing to eat. I'm freezing cold and hungry. I hope you're finally satisfied. Simon.
Reasonable. You can get a reply. I was absolutely... I've got to tell you, because I was 14, 15, I was appalled. I mean, but I'm glad I went through it.
Why do you think you were so rebellious?
Because I was bored, Piers. And to be honest with you, I kind of knew I'd learned everything I needed to learn. I could add up, I could read English, I could write, whatever. You know, every time I was sitting in chemistry lessons, you know, with stupid Bunsen burners and stuff like that, I'm not going to do that when I'm 30, you know? I'd get bored and I'd get frustrated and I just couldn't wait to leave.
Eventually, you landed a job at EMI Records in the mailroom. You were a postboy.
Yeah.
Did you have any sense... I mean, did you feel this was a demeaning job, or were you actually a good little grafter then? I mean...
Oh, no, I thoroughly enjoyed it. I mean, no, it doesn't even enter your mind demeaning. You know, you're just happy to get in... You know, you're at the ground, and it was at an age where if you started at the bottom and you were seen to work hard, you would always be, you know, promoted. It was always accepted.
You quickly, I mean, you showed your entrepreneurial skills because you very quickly broke away from EMI and you formed your own record label.
Too early, if I'm being honest with you. I got out the post room, I was given a good job, and I was persuaded to do something, and I didn't have the experience. So I probably did it a bit early in hindsight, but I was very, very impatient at that point.
There's no doubt you're a very effective boss now, but you've had to learn the hard way. And I want to take you back to the early 80s. Simon already had his own record label when he spotted a glamorous woman dancing in a club. She was exactly what he was looking for.
First time I saw Simon, I'm quite shy, because there was this very hunky guy in a very tight vest with long, sort of flicked David Cassidy hair, dark. And I thought, he's really cute.
I think when Simon saw Sunita in the early days, she was young, she was cute, she was sexy, and he thought, God, I fancy her, and I can make her a star as well.
Actually, he sidled up to me and sort of said hello. And he said, what's your name and what do you do? And I said, well, my name is Sunita and I'm a singer. And he went, oh, and sort of actually pulled me onto his lap, sat down and pulled me onto his lap. Well, if you're a singer, darling, why don't you sing me a song?
Simon liked what he heard and had to release her first single, So Macho, 3 times before it became the biggest selling single of the year. And no expense was spared on the video.
And I remember Simon calling me, quick, turn on the radio. And there they were like, and zooming into the charts this week, it's Sunita with So Macho. And we literally screamed for the whole track.
Eager for another Sunita hit, Simon approached legendary producer Pete Waterman.
The thing about Simon is, he's like a dog with a bone.
Simon got his way. Toy Boy was another top 10 success, and with it, the fledgling media mogul threw parties to impress.
None of us were wealthy, but, Simon's parties were just lavish, like Roman orgies. That's the only way you can describe them.
This was us in the 80s, dressed up, drinking champagne, in our shoulder pads, thinking we were fabulous.
Simon was always a millionaire. Just there weren't a million in the bank.
The Simon's luck eventually ran out. Despite the hits, his record company collapsed. He turned up at his mum's door with just £5 to his name.
It was shattering for him to have to move back in with his parents again at the age of 30-something. He never complained, never, ever, ever felt sorry for himself. He just was determined to do something about it. And he did.
You're 30 years old, you've got no money, literally, you're down to a few quid, and you're heading home to your mum and dad. What's going through your mind?
I was in a cab, and I was working out, I'm not sure whether the £5 is going to cover the cab fare. I mean, literally, that was it. It was all gone. So that was my only thought. It was during the 1980s. It was a time where everybody was borrowing a ton of money. It was the yuppies. It was driving Porsches, whatever. Everything was borrowed or everything was mortgaged. And the whole lot literally came crashing down. And I owed the bank, I don't know, £300,000 or £400,000. I had to sell my house, my car. In a strange way, it was incredibly liberating because, everything wasn't mine. It belonged to somebody else. And I never really missed it because it wasn't actually mine in the first place.
What did your mum say when you walked through the door?
Oh, she was really happy. Couldn't wait to get me back. They were absolutely fine. And it was very interesting because at a time like that, you really realise who your friends are. And my friends really were my friends. I wasn't embarrassed. I paid back the bank loan, bought an old sports car, which I loved, an old TR6 for £7,000. Used to bomb around in that. And I just thought this time, I'm going to do it properly. I'm going to take my time. I'm not going to borrow money. And I kind of, in a weird way, enjoyed it.
How did you get back on your feet? Was there a person who said, you know what, I still believe in you?
I'd say, my dad really more than anything else, because he, when I went back to live there, I mean, they had a nice flat in London. It was fine. I mean...
What did he say to you, Dad?
He just basically said, look, you've just learned a lesson. He didn't really preach other than you've got to do it properly.
When you got a bit of power and you had your own gig, for want of a better phrase, what kind of boss were you?
Well, that's a good question because, I mean, in the first, 8-10 years, however long it was, when I first started, we only had 2 or 3 people, working in the office. I mean, it was tiny. So I'd never really felt like a boss to them. It was just, we were all hustling in those days, trying to make a living.
What do you think it takes to make a good boss?
Look, I think, first of all, you've got to, as I've always said, you've got to be a good listener. And you've got to motivate people. You've got to pay them a lot of money. You've got to look after them. I can't ever imagine anyone wanting to leave me.
You have fired people.
We've moved them on.
Kate Thornton, Louis.
Okay.
The common theme, if you don't mind me just stopping you there, is that in each case you got somebody else to do the dirty work.
Well, with Kate, I should have done it myself, yeah. It bothered me that we'd fallen out over it, and eventually I called her. And I said, look, I think, you and I have got to deal with this because you're still angry and I want you to understand what actually happened. And then we agreed that, we'd be okay.
I mean, Louis became unsackable because he tried and then he came back.
Well, I honestly didn't think he'd care. I mean, that's what we thought at the time, that maybe the show needed moving on.
I interviewed him after you fired him, but before he went back, and he was actually devastated.
Oh, no, he was.
But he was also quite hurt you hadn't called him.
Yes. No.
Do you regret that?
Yes, I do, yeah. Yeah, I do. When something like this happens, and we haven't done it a lot, but it does happen, it's a very, very public thing. If you like the people as well, I mean, it's something you do not want to do because it becomes incredibly personal. But you're right, it is a cowardly thing, and I think you have to do it yourself. But it's not something I would ever look forward to doing.
Your mum said she'd never seen you that emotional, almost like she didn't imagine you could be like that.
I shut myself off totally, and I just couldn't accept it.
Is it true that one of your exes nicknamed you Mummy Look because of your desire to please your mother?